We start with a tribute to Stan Lee, given he died right before the MCU went downhill faster than that time I lost grip of my granny's wheelchair in the Lake District. Before we cut to a generic white woman called Veers, who's having some bad dreams about another generic white woman and also some sort of mysterious crash site. So she soon knocks on the door of her mentor, Yon Rog, and says she can only get back to sleep if she can smack up a straight white man in a shit training sequence. So naturally, he totally obliges. But turns out she's got some sort of innate glowy powers what her bosses have made energy inhibiting implants to repress, and that she's totally forbidden to use given she's emotionally unstable due to her vague past what she can't quite remember yet seems somewhat upset about because reasons. But still ends up centering him flat on his ass using a tiny bolt of her energy beams, because she apparently can't beat him without using her special powers of super cheating. Anyway, she then talks to the supreme artificial intelligence what rules her Kree home planet, and who takes the form of the person who means most to him, despite her not currently even remembering who this woman is supposed to be. But she helpfully reminds her about the ongoing war what the Kree are at with a race of naughty green shapeshifters called the Skrulls, because they're all a bunch of super secret terrorists what like to super secretly invade places super secretly and shit. So they head off to the planet Torfa to stop the Skrull fellas secretly invading another planet of innocent refugees and just generally doing a bunch of bad things. And upon arrival, they soon run into said local refugees, but in a shocking twist what no one could ever see coming. Turns out the naughty Skrull fellas, what can totally shapeshift, have shapeshifted into the local refugee population and totally ambushed our dopey heroes.
No way!
So, after things go tits up and Veers is totally captured, the Skrull general called Talos explores her hidden memories, and mainly back to when she was a Thomas Cruise type Top Gun cosplayer but with tits and a fanny. And a super flat ass.
Bruh.
Anyway, he also sees some time in her younger days when all the men in her life said super misogynistic things to her, and told her she was proper shite and would never amount to anything. Well, who's laughing now, eh?
No!
Anyway, they soon find a suppressed memory of some scientist bird called Dr. Lawson, who looks suspiciously like the form that the Supreme Intelligence takes whenever she visits her and shit. And turns out Talos is totally looking for this Dr. Lawson lassie as well as coordinates for her lightspeed engine, and now knows it's somewhere on Earth. And before you can say, why is this one alien Australian? The sheer trauma of reliving some sort of massive plane crash and also hearing irritating Aussie voices in her head totally snaps her out of it. And after smacking up little green men with perfect ease and whilst totally barefoot, she almost gets sucked out into space, but manages to summon a random helmet out of nowhere and boosts herself to safety using another short burst of her forbidden beam powers. And before I can say how to figure her toes not totally frostbit after being exposed to the icy cold vacuum of deep space, she goes back to retrieve her little booties, before stealing a Skrull ship and getting the heck out of Dodge already. But given she's a woman and therefore can't drive for toffee, she instantly crash lands on Earth and wakes up inside a Blockbuster shop in the 1990s.
Okay.
And I can totally relate, because I once woke up inside a local video store after a mad bender back in the 90s, though I at least had the good grace not to go around smashing up the gaff in panic confusion. Whilst elsewhere, the Skrulls soon follow her to Earth, where Talos immediately engages in some cultural appropriation in order to blend into the local community, by instantly changing genders and cosplaying as a top totty Asian woman.
Nice.
After Veers uses a local payphone to somehow give her generic mentor a sitrep, a 90s Phil Coulson appears and appears to have been digitally de-aged, alongside a smooth-faced living waxwork version of 90s Nick Fury. And no, not that 90s Nick Fury. And he's also been digitally de-aged. But before he can arrest her for criminally damaging the roof of a local Blockbusters and for also being an illegal space alien, some sneaky fucker takes a shot at him. So naturally, she does some outdoor parkour and follows the would-be assassin onto a moving train, whilst Fury and Coulson take pursuit in a small motor. But unfortunately, she soon remembers how the Skrull peeps are totally shapeshifters, so promptly inspects the train passengers for signs of being scaly lizard freaks. And after hilariously ignoring a suspect who seems to have literally disguised himself as a legendary Stan fucking Lee, she instead smacks up a random elderly lady for shits and giggles. But luckily, it's totally the naughty Skrull fella in wrinkly whiteface. and she soon has a punch-up with the form-flipping fiend on top of the train roof, whilst Fury soon realises he's sat in a speeding car with one of them space aliens after the real Coulson rings him to say he straight up left his dopey ass back at the Blockbuster's car park.
No!
But also, luckily, they soon get into a small crash which totally kills his sneaky foe, yet leaves him without a scratch given he's got plot armour up the kazoo and also a multiple picture movie deal. Whilst Veers repeats the actions of the Met Police on 7/7 and promptly loses a dangerous terror suspect at the local train station. Later, she tries to find the location of a bar what she kind of remembers in partially recovered memories. And after ignoring a poor bloke just saying hello and then having him channel the feelings of the audience by advising her to cheer the fuck up and smile some more, she commits GBH and also GTA by crushing his hand and robbing his motorbike, also for shits and giggles.
Damn!
Elsewhere, Fury's boss Keller tells him to keep tabs on this random white woman what keeps smacking up random pensioners on public trains, as he soon finds her in a bar where she used to do shit karaoke back in the day. And he just can't believe that little green space aliens are real and they can somehow change faces quicker than Katie Price's plastic surgeon on speed dial. So naturally, she then asks him to prove he's not a Skrull by just giving her random facts about his personal history what she could never possibly verify. And after asking her to do the same, he just takes her word that a space alien he's never seen or heard of before today can't do photon blasts like her. And so this totally somehow proves that she's not a little green alien in disguise, but instead just another kind of weirdo alien what looks like a flat-assed bimbo. So after making a point to tell her that everyone just calls him Fury and not Nick, Nicholas or Nick... So after making a point to tell her that everyone just calls him Fury and not Nick, Nicholas or the N-word, unless you're a close friend or gangster homeboy what he's known for years, said Fury fella takes her to the nearby super secret Pegasus installation to search the archives for info on this mysterious Dr. Lawson lady. And after giving her a shit hat and soon getting overexcited whilst exploring said government archive, he suddenly stops to stroke a small pussy. And also call for backup, I guess. Anyway, Veers soon discovers that Lawson died in a plane crash 6 years ago which totally destroyed her lightspeed engine thing. And some chocolate bird called Maria Rambeau was the last person to see her alive, and who looked suspiciously like the chocolate bird what she used to fly planes with and do shit karaoke duets in her dreams with and stuff. And after calling up young Rocky Boy again, she discovers that Lawson was secretly an undercover Kree agent called Marvell, and who was on Earth working on secret experimental tech that could help the Kree win the war. And after this dope wonders if she's been lied to, given she seems to have had a life here on this Blackwater planet and Marvell is the form she sees when she talks to the Supreme AI thing back home, he tells her to stop being a whiny bitch and keep her emotions in check. Because he's tracking her home in Beacon and will totally be there soon to bring reinforcements, so shut up about it already. Meanwhile, Nick's boss Keller arrives and weirdly calls him Nicholas, which totally tinkles his Fury sense. And his suspicions are totally validated when Keller tries to kill him because reasons. And after being spacked up by a middle-aged Gaminy Australian, Veers soon saves his butt and gets in the heck out of Dodge in a hijacked fighter jet. Just like the kind she used to fly back in the day and apparently also kept crashing if her dreams are anything to go by. Anyway, turns out that meandering Moggy has followed her on board too. And the force of the thrust soon spreads her ginger pussy flat. And promptly giving me flashbacks to my Tinder date last week. Anyway, elsewhere, Yonrog updates his Kree boss called Ronan the Accuser, who tells him to yeet the naughty terrorist Skrulls already, or else he'll come down to that pussy old Earth place and do it himself and shit. So after flying to Louisiana and reuniting with her old mate Maria Rambeau, who incidentally has the worst wig since James Buckley in Doctor Who or Michael Fabricant in real life, Veers apologises to her little Sprog Monica about leaving them both suddenly half a decade ago, and then tells her mum about her annoying amnesia and all the utterly mental shit what's been going on for the past 6 years. A little later, and Talos turns up wanting to do a Trucy team-up, given he recovered a black box from that secret plane crash and what sounds like Veers' voice piloting it. And much like my homosexual mate Backdoor Brian, he seems to be irrationally petrified of pussy. Especially very ginger ones. Anyway, the black box soon triggers painful memories of the crash, and turns out they were attacked by the Kree, who wanted Marvell's lightspeed engine thing. And after crash landing another jet, given this woman seems to be the worst fucking pilot in the universe, the alien passenger is mortally wounded, even though the box standard human girl without any superpowers at this point escaped without even a scratch on her.
Nice.
Young Rock then turns up and totally kills Marvel to prevent her from destroying the engine before the Kree could recover it. So, attempting to outsmart him, Veers shoots the energy core herself to try and destroy it, and soon gets blowed up real good and proper by a giant fuck-off energy explosion, which she promptly absorbs and thereby gains magical powers but losing her memory in the process. And no fair, because last time I accidentally blew myself up, I just lost my eyebrows and was told never to try and set light to the gas emanating from a Manhattan manhole cover just for a stupid TikTok prank, ever again. So naturally, they straight up kidnapped the now amnesiac human and took her back to their home planet, where they proceeded to brainwash and totally deceive her for the best part of a decade. Liberties! And she just can't believe that everything she thought she knew was a lie and Skrulls aren't terrorists after all, but rather persecuted refugees being exterminated by the genocidal Kree. And she just whines on about not knowing who she is. And before you can say, join the fucking club, love, because we've spent an hour watching your film and so far no one knows what you're all about, where your powers come from, or why we should even root for someone who can't even muster a smile without looking constipated. Maria tries to stop her having another emotional meltdown by cringily listing all her supposed character traits and what she loves about this generic plank of wood whose acting is giving me splinters through the frigging TV screen. But Talos says enough with all this gay shit, because we need to find that energy core what powered that lightspeed engine and what would have carried all our people to safety and shit. Because he reckons the core is still somewhere on Marvel's hidden space station, so they got to get to finding it pronto. So after little Monica freshens up her suit whilst the gang are inside racking their brains, they soon realise that the hidden spaceship was just floated up in space all along. And once inside, they totally find the energy core MacGuffin thing, which turns out to be the Tesseract MacGuffin thing, or that giant purple alien with the ball-back chin wanted in the Avengers flicks, back when the MCU was actually good. But shockingly, turns out that Talos didn't want to find Marvel's lab for no stinking blue cube, but rather so he could rub foreheads with his baldy bae, and then reunite with all his lost relatives and scaly green mates and shit. Because he just wanted to ensure the safety of his loved ones all along. And naturally, Veers is flabbergasted, because in another shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming, turns out Ben Mendelsohn was not actually the bad guy in a film for once in his frigging life. Anyway, his people are all totally relieved to have been finally found, mainly because they've been stuck on a small spaceship for 6 years and with only a pinball machine to keep them occupied. But suddenly, that young rock fella appears, and she totally calls him out for lying to her for years and also for kidnapping unconscious women without their consent. But naturally, being a patriarchal straight white male with a fuck ton of privilege, he promptly brings her to her knees and holds her down again, before sending this troublesome tart to visit the Supreme Intelligence, who promptly tells her that she's a right male and too much of a pussyhole to handle her powers. But luckily, she remembers her name was Carol Danvers and that she was stunning and brave from birth. And after having a massive emotional outburst after seeing painful childhood memories all around her, she realises she was a glorious Mary Sue all along, and soon throws off the shackles of her Kree inhibitors, which allows her to release her full potential and glow like a fucking Chernobyl survivor. And soon breaks out of the mental prison and smacks up all the Kree forces just as easily as she did in the film's entire first act.
Nice.
A little later, and their pussy friend, what is secretly some sort of alien shape-shifting thing itself, gobbles up the Tesseract to keep it safe, as Talos leads Nick and his people back to the ship, but unfortunately gets shot up just as they're about to leave, and it looks like it's curtains for the number one illegal alien what loves doing Australian whiteface. But just like the title of that terrible James Bond film,
there's just no time to die.
So Maria flies him down to Earth whilst young Roggers follows suit. And as Carol falls off his plane and is about to get squashed flatter than Brie Larson's ass and also Prince Elrond's face, she summons even more BS superpowers from somewhere deep inside and totally learns to fly just in the nick of time. Whilst up in orbit, that Ronan fella in Snorted Kree fleet arrived to finish the Skrull genocide job himself. And just can't believe that Earth seems to have some sort of super defence system out of nowhere what makes their advanced tech look like harmless birthday balloons. But they soon realise that that pussy old Earth planet is now protected by some overpowered blonde bird who loves trashing video rental stores. So he tells his minions to take her out already. But unfortunately, she's too stunning and brave to die today, and quickly makes them all look like total mugs for a second time in 5 minutes. So naturally, Ronan says we'll be back for her before he flies away like a right gack. And all I could think was, nah, I don't think you will, mate, because I've seen Guardians 1, and you're going to totally die after losing a shit dance battle against a literal prat. Anyway, Carol then returns to have a final face-off with her old nondescript mentor fella, who swiftly reminds her how she can't possibly beat him without using her super cheaty powers, and desperately tries to talk her into having a fair fight, and without overpowered Infinity Stone infused abilities what could destroy him in an instant. But she just hilariously zaps him, and says she has nothing to prove to some straight white bloke with a receding hairline, and then tells him to tell the Supreme Intelligence that she's coming back to stop them doing all these bad things once she sorts things out on Earth and does some more karaoke nights with her best mate what loves a shit wig. Meanwhile, Talos seems to have shaken off his earlier bullet wound and is now A-OK. Which is more than he can say for Fury, given he just got his eye scratched out by a friggin' alien shape-shifting cat with a giant fuck-off tentacle face. Later, the gang regroup and chill out after Carol saved the day by learning that she was awesome all along and just needed to shake off the literal shackles of the white man keeping her down. And as a BLM supporting black man currently hanging out in small town Louisiana, Nicky Boy says he totally relates to that. Whilst Talos hilariously says that he loved cosplaying as an Australian honky and bossing him about all day, and kinda wants to go back to doing that. But Nick says no chance, mate, because you're an illegal alien, and just lucky I'm a raging libtard what loves open borders, or else I'd have to have you deported back to Skrull Island, or wherever it is you freaks come from, and get that orange fella to build a giant space wall in orbit and shit. But Carol says chill, bro, because I'll go out looking for a planet for them all to live on, and then they can all shut up about it already. But before that, she upgrades his state-of-the-art 90s pager and tells him to only use it in emergencies. Like if New York City comes under attack from a literal Norse god with a stupid helmet, or if you just need a 3 AM booty call. And we end with Captain Flatass flying into orbit to see the refugees off safely. And before you can say, how is she breathing in space without a helmet now and why is her hair still obeying gravity like that? We cut to Fury telling Coulson that there might be other super freaks out there that can help protect the Earth if they can just find these people and convince them to use their potential powers for good. And then uses his mate's Top Gun codename to create the Carol Initiative. To create the Avengers Initiative. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was when one of Yon Rog's minion women revealed that she was a Bryan Singer superfan, by recreating that scene from Superman Returns and shooting Carol in the face with a sponge bullet from a nearby Nerf gun, which hilariously bounces off her impenetrable eye just like in that terrible film back in the day. But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot, considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you liked this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll see you in the next one.